All right, here we are for round 2 of Vyzygoth Raw and Live. And we have with us, once again, he was on last month, and the bad news was it didn't really get recorded. The good news is somebody did get the last half, and we'll put that audio up later. But with us again is William Ramsey. He's the author, and I guess the way you best know him, of the book Prophet of Evil, Aleister Crowley, 9/11, and the New World Order. But now he's been working on documentaries and delving deeper and deeper into the occult, I guess, ramifications, if you will, and connections between the masters of evil and the rest of us, the little people. So, William, thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time.
Great. Thanks for having me back on. I'm glad to be here.
All right. And also, folks, I'll probably tack on that lost audio that has been found. And believe it or not, William, the gentleman, and you never know who really anybody is, but the gentleman who saved that has a tag of Carl Reiner. So, Carl, give our best to Mel, and we'll go on with what is...
I like Carl Reiner. I actually just saw him recently, and it's a mad, 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 mad world.
Oh,
so
best.
Do you remember that movie?
Oh, yes.
That's a fantastic movie. I didn't even know it was Carl Reiner. He was very trim back in those days, but he looked good. So hopefully, Carl Reiner, thank you very much.
Yeah, we all were. Okay, great.
I'm a fan.
Now, some of the best straight-out funny humor without getting blue in any crap. That was good stuff.
Yeah, mad, mad world.
So now, to the greater gravity of what we're going to talk about, you've been working on some documentaries, and I think you might want to talk about them to a certain extent. They're not necessarily finished. They're still in the hopper, but you're going to tease them a little bit, but also tell us what has led you to go into this. And let me ask you, William, when you get into this kind of stuff, one, do you find it almost like quicksand? And two, do you find it, shall we say, somewhat troublesome to one's soul?
Yeah, I would say both. I mean, I think that it's hard for me to get away from it because of I consider myself a pretty naive person, so learning these deeper things that I never learned in school and college, and not being a member of any occult secret society. Once I realized that so much of this is taking place in front of your face, it's amazing to me to see how prevalent it is in our political leaders and our culture. So it's definitely like quicksand, and it's definitely troublesome because you see how much it really does suffuse everything in what you've been taught as an ostensibly Christian religious environment.
And this is a very general question, and we don't have to stay long here. But the thing I think I find troublesome is in the supposed really, really, really Christian sects. They're not quite putting it together. And I'll say this. I mean, it's like they consider Satan asleep, like he's not working. We haven't seen him lately, so I don't really think it's a problem. And they have no idea. It's one of those things about the forest for the tree, that it's all around us, but they're not putting together that, one, there'll be a great deception. Two, it will come unto us like one of us. And I think you see it, and I see it, and a lot of people have. They don't have to all be Christian. I mean, they can deal with it if they want to in a secular sense. But for you and me, and for those of our kind, they're not getting it, and it's like, there's this big wave coming over us, and everybody's going like, what's the problem? Why is everybody running from the beach?
Right. Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, I'd have people in the Christian community who are leaders of churches in L.A. who don't believe in the spiritual. I mean, it's strange that they believe in the spiritual world of God, but they don't believe in the spiritual world of demons or the devil, And to me, that's an integral part of the New Testament. So, and Christ talked about it. I mean, that's what's also unusual and interesting to me is that it was a central part of his time on earth was not just doing good and teaching other people, but also staring down and speaking out against evil people. I mean, some of his statements against Jerusalem and the individuals there, and I mean, there's the meeting with Satan where he's tempted with 3 trials among other trials, and it's like, and it suffuses all of Paul's writing, Peter's writing, everything like that. So why can't you see it today? It's almost like they're trapped in looking back in 2,000 years of history instead of seeing what's happening now. I mean, I think Orwell said wisely among his other wise statements is the hardest part of looking at things is seeing what's right in front of your nose, you know. And for me, that's really it. It's like, why look back? Can't you see the evil and the occultism and Satanism in everyday life and detect it and be on the watch for it, you know? So it seems strange to, you know, it's like they're abridging, you know, essential elements of the New Testament, New and Old Testament. I mean, there's all kinds of witchcraft references in the Old Testament as well, and you know, evil spiritual events and priests of Baal, etc. And you know, it's kind of like the Jeffersonian view of the Bible. Well, I'm going to take this and just say Christ is a moral teacher, and you know, there's not some other dimension or world out there that, you know, he's drawing power from. Although I'm going to go to heaven, you know, which is which they believe in. So it's some other place, but they don't see, you know, or perceive in their hearts that, you know, there's something else going on that people can draw, you know, power from a dark side, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not going to beat to death the fact that I think people are more inclined to listen to their preachers than they are to read it for themselves, and to realize that, you know, the Bible was made for you to read and digest. It was not, you know, highfalutin language. It was street language. And it's about time that you get into the Word and let the Holy Spirit guide you rather than go to church and have someone tell you the way things are. I mean, this is the whole laugh, if you will, about the Catholic Church that, and to this day, if you go to a Catholic church, for the most part, you don't find any Bibles in the pews. Of course, you know, a millennia ago or more, one of the problems was that they wanted to read the Word and they weren't allowed to because the priest would break it to them the way that he wanted to. The Protestant religion had the Bibles. Problem is they don't read them. But in both situations, if you believe in Jehovah, you believe in the Son Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit, then you should be able to read it. And if you pray for illumination, and I'm sorry to use that word in a sense, but you will get it. I think that has stopped because people are enamored of personalities, whether it's their local preacher or whether it's a jerk like Osteen on TV or Benny Hinn and the rest of these idiots, these snake oil salesmen, and they'll go with that. You know?
Right. Unfortunately, they don't know a lot better. I mean, a lot of it's, you know, cult of personality. And, you know, I think that you're absolutely right. The real Christianity takes place between you and the Bible and the Word and prayer. And that's really it. You know, I don't know. Church should be almost a corollary to your Christian walk through life, at least for me. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that church is invaluable. I'm just saying that that's where you go to be in fellowship with other people, and hopefully, you know, you're educated from the Word instead of from the pastor. Pastorcraft is a lesser form of priestcraft that takes place in the, you know, priestcraft is like or rabbi craft, I guess it's, you know, it's probably applicable as well. But, you know, if you rely on somebody else as an intermediary instead of, you know, listening to the Word itself, I think you're doing yourself a disservice, or a person is doing themselves a disservice.
Sorry to say it, but it's gotten to the point, and I liken it to a Patriot broadcasting where you're supposed to get the truth, and that is, if you really tell the truth, if you really know it, first of all, and most of these idiots don't, but some do and won't, you know, and won't go there, like Jones and such. But it's like that with preachers too. If they tell the people the truth, they're going to lose congregation.
Agreed.
Therefore, the whole enterprise goes down, and boy, doesn't that suck. I'm sorry, but, you know, I never really saw in the Bible where we had to have mega churches and all this other stuff. In fact, I
didn't see that either.
No, I thought it was pretty much like cells, and if you had elders, fine. And I thought, for the most part, one would be rotated around to give a homily. I won't go into the whole thing, but I think something went very much wrong, where bigness and greatness seems to be more holy, and that is absolutely the opposite. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also have found myself, like, since I've been getting into the cult and saying, hey, look, this person is really not that great. They're deceiving you. You know, if you melt down people's golden calves, they will be angry. So, and those are primarily Christians. You know, if you say this guy's not a Christian, and you know they really think that he's out there protecting them, I've seen them turn and go after me in a pretty nasty way. You know, so.
And I'll just say this, and I wanted to respond by all means, but we'll get into the heart of the reason why you're here. And that is, one of the things I find interesting is that in the Ten Commandments it says, have no other gods before me. It may not be gods with a capital G, but Jehovah was telling us, yeah, there are others out there. And they can work some kind of mojo, is what I'm getting. But, that's not me. I'm the true God. I mean, but there are out there. And the other thing is, do you remember, when was it? Was it in Paul's epistles where, help me out on this, but didn't Paul cast out the demon of some woman who was a...
Yeah, she was a fortune teller.
A fortune teller, yeah. And weren't, like, shall we call them, the Chamber of Commerce of the town pissed off because
yes,
you just destroyed their enterprise.
The goose that laid the golden egg.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so my point is, yes, people can divine. It's true. Even in the Old Testament or whatever. I mean, I don't think the Lord ever said, they're not telling you the truth. It's like, but why do you go to them?
Right.
And if you hold up, go ahead.
No, you're right. I mean, there's Saul and the Witch of Endor or whatever. We went to raise the dead. I mean, so these are Old Testament things that you're not supposed to do, even though you may be able to raise spirits of, people who've moved to the other side, but, that's forbidden. All
right, no problem. I mean, nobody said this isn't true. The thing is, why do you go there? Don't you trust me for your life? So, all right, now, you're hitting a lot of heads, buddy.
I am?
Oh, with the documentaries you got coming?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
so
good for you. So I tell you what, line them up and go at it whatever which way you wish to.
Well, I mean, I think that when I got led back to Crowley from 9/11, it opened me up to the much broader, terms and things that people are saying that are sub rosa that somebody who's not in the occult, would not be able to understand. So I really have been studying political leaders and, the Hollywood. So I've seen a lot of Hollywood. Like I have another one, Hollywood, too, that's going to come out at some point. So I'm working on a variety of projects. I don't have just one. I just, compile these things and in my spare time try to, which I don't have a lot of, try to compile them. So, I realize that, like, Obama is a straight-up occultist, and so is Bush. I mean, and the father, the Bush Jr. and father. I mean, they're both skull and bones guys. So, I see them, and then when I study their public statements, there's many things that they're saying that are meant for a smaller audience. There's definitely like an exoteric and an esoteric analysis, and they've played those cards very well. That the public, who they don't want to have understand, could, will have to. Basically, if they don't have an occult understanding, they wouldn't see it. So, I've been studying them, and I've tried to compile and show. And the other thing is not only are they occultists, but there's all types of media disinfo and misinfo, and just straight up control of the media that prevents people from seeing behind the curtain to see the wizard. And so that's just like I tried to discern really what's going on and compile evidence that shows that, these are certainly not Christians and certainly not people out for, the betterment of society. They believe in kind of the same kind of view that Crowley does in a lot of ways. They really don't care about the poor. They have an elitist sensibility, they don't mind a feudal state, and they're pretty ruthless and, selfish. So I think that, I put together these films and these videos will, back up my opinions for that. So, I'm doing Occult Obama, and then I went through and analyzed a lot of the speeches that Bush had made, and I just discerned, and Bush and his father have made, and people are familiar with, the famous speech that George Bush made September 11, 1991 about, a new world order, and we will, and all that. But there are other speeches that he's made, that the father has made and the son have made that, the general public should be made aware of, and their interpretation, at least in my interpretation of what they said, should be public knowledge.
All right. And again, I don't know which one you want to address first because you do have some audio bites, and so I'm going to set up to you as far as the order in which you want to.
Well, let's talk about Obama. I mean, Obama's the current president, and we can go back through. And some of these things have been covered by other people, but, I just wanted to bring it up. People. The thing is, you get a really good idea of character when you put together all of these clips that I did, and you see, what this person really is about, not this public image of hope and change and these kind of Soviet-style propaganda efforts that, his handlers have put together. I just wanted to show that there is, and it's kind of a theme that you have pressed upon, that these guys are puppets, they're figureheads, they're part of a larger system, I think, and I think that's the case for any presidential unit. But it's good to see the team of thinkers that's behind the presidential figurehead or facade, I guess. So, for example, in Obama, I have a clip of Obama where he talks about his handler, who is none other than Brzezinski. So he talks about Dr. Brzezinski. I have a clip from 2007 where he says, "I cannot say enough about his contribution to our country. He's one of our most outstanding scholars, one of our most outstanding thinkers. He has proven to be an outstanding friend and someone who I've learned an immense amount from." So when he says that, you're talking about a guy who, has written 2 books with occult themes. A lot of people don't know that, but the Between Two Ages is very similar in Crowley's view and other occultists' view, where you go from an old age to a new age. So he wrote, the Between Two Ages, I think it's called, the whole title is about the technotronic era. But if Brzezinski is Obama's handler, that's extremely important, and it shows how this continuum of change that's taking place in the United States is being handled by a technocratic kind of wizard behind the scenes. So, in Brzezinski's Between Two Ages, which was written in 1970, he says the technotronic era involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by an elite, unrestrained by traditional values. And I think you can see that is pretty evident in the last 10 years. And it's important to see the continuum. People expected change from Obama, but that's really the stable sense of values that's happened between both presidents and parties. So,
but you make a good point. I'm sorry to interrupt you, and please stay with that thought, William. I don't want you to leave that. But when I hear you say this, the one thing I think we have to think about is that we supposedly elect a president. Actually, it was more a manipulated selection. But forget that. Right. Even though you elect a president, so to speak, it's like with egg roll, you get all these. And that right. is all the unelected officials that come piling in as cabinet members and advisors. And if you take a look going back to, the late 70s, there's characters that always seem to be around no matter who's in the Oval Office, and that would go for Kissinger, Brzezinski, right. Haig.
Gates.
Yeah, I mean, there's always...
Gates switched he's on the Republican Party. He's handling the Department of Defense still. I mean, how odd is that?
I know, and the thing is, nobody picks up on this stuff. But yeah. You quote elect the president, but with all that, with that vote supposedly, you get all these characters compiling in. In essence, this country is run by unelected officials. Think about it.
I would say that they find the guy that they want to run, and they support them, and they have all the experience operating the mechanics of the government from the central area of D.C., and that's the way it runs. I mean, look at Cheney and Rumsfeld. That team, they've been loitering around Washington for 40 years. Cheney is essentially the de facto president in a lot of ways, and Rumsfeld, these guys are masterful operators. I mean, incredible skill, very intelligent.
And yeah, without a doubt. And of course, aided. I mean, the fact that they never go away strikes me as interesting. It's like Cheney's coming back out again. It's like, why are we listening to you? What in the world do you have to tell us? I mean, but these characters just don't go anywhere. And the advisors, which we always overlook, are there.
Right.
And I'm not saying that they influence a president so much to the point where he might do something differently. I'm just saying that there's handlers there to make sure what has to get done gets done. My point
Absolutely.
is, if a president ever uses his own volition and it isn't in the game plan, the script he signed on for, that's when you wind up dead.
Right. And that's exactly what happened to Kennedy. I mean, he had his handlers and people who were around, and he started, breaking things up, and they got him,
And I'll tell you what, with the parallels of Lincoln and Kennedy, look, they were son of a bitches. You have to be running in the game. That's the way it goes. It's a rough and tumble. You know what it's about. And it does take somebody to do that stuff. However, if there's anything I think that the American people endear themselves to, for those who kind of get it, and that is both those guys couldn't go along with the game plan, and somewhere along the line, I believe, conscious or whatever you want to call it, took them over. And when they balked on executing the script, they were executed in turn.
I agree. And, they may not have known the entirety of what is going to be requested of him. Right. Kennedy might not have known. Maybe he was young. He might have been very naive. I mean, he, for as much as he was, he was not as connected as people might think. I mean, he's from a rich and powerful family, but, he was divorced from a lot of the other powerful players there, and he had also gone through World War II and seen, so much death and destruction that the, Vietnam War in Cuba may have just seen, I don't want any more of this. He had friends die, his brother had died, and, they wanted to keep going and, plunder and kill, and he didn't seem to want to have anything to do with that, so.
Yeah. So we give him marks, at least, for having a change of heart. If they couldn't do it, I think that's why, in a way, I look at them more endearing. It's like, look, you guys, like I said, you guys are SOBs. You knew what it had to be, and you decide, no, I can't do this. And for that, I give them,
absolutely
the respect.
Yeah.
But you live by it, man. You die by it. You knew what you were signing on to.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I think that Kennedy really did try. I mean, he tried to tell the truth and tried to do the right thing. Federal Reserve, CIA. He gave that speech, unwisely against, to a bunch of people from the media, but they're all probably controlled. So, I don't know if that's the way I want, he tried to enlist the help of, I think it was the press corps meeting. That's where that speech comes from, where he's talking about secret societies, with their own, Subros.
Yeah, that was a speech at the press corps.
Right.
I believe at the Waldorf Astoria, 10 days after the Bay of Pigs was scuttled. And I think he was stinging from that. Yes, and you're right. I mean, he makes a veiled threat, I guess, or at least exposure of, I would say, the Vatican, and that I think signs his death warrant. And plus, he also popped off when he was running against his other Democratic opponents trying to get the nomination. In '59, he was saying that the Vatican won't rule me. That probably doesn't go over too well in Rome, so I don't know. But,
yeah, well, I have there's going to be a lot of pictures in these films from guys bowing down in front of the Pope, bowing down in front of the Cardinal in New York. I have pictures of that the public really doesn't see how much these guys basically are obeisant before the, Catholic Church hierarchy. So, those aren't pictures they publish in the papers, but I think people will find that interesting.
All right, and thank you for that. But let me bring you back to where you were going along the lines. At least you were speaking with regard to Obama.
Well, let's talk about Brzezinski. I mean, yeah. Brzezinski was Obama's handler, and Kissinger was McCain's guy. So you have these two kind of New World Order operatives who have direct ties to, Eastern elites, Rockefeller family, who are going to be advisors for national policy at least, and if not more, two potential winners for, the presidency, whether it was going to be McCain or Obama. I suspect that Obama was going to win. McCain was just a phony, horse. They were running against him. But I have some very interesting things on Brzezinski. I mean, like I was saying, his two book titles were Occult, the Between Two Ages, which is like Aeons and Crowley's idea, the Aeon of Osiris and the Aeon of Horus, which we are probably now in. And then the Grand Chessboard, which is occultic. Most people would just think, it's a kind of a game, and that's one interpretation. But the chessboard, 88, it's 8 by 8 squares, and those are important Pythagorean numbers. I mean, Pythagoras was a Greek philosopher, a mathematician, but he also had a kind of secret society sensibility. He scoured the earth to find all the great knowledge, but he didn't want to give it out to the people. he wanted to keep it all for himself. And, you see, if you look in our recent history, a lot of interesting things happen with that 88 because of its occult meaning. So there's a direct tie there, and I suspect that Brzezinski is probably an initiate of one or if not many secret societies. He's been up to a lot of not much good over the last 30 years. Anyway.
I don't even know. I mean, you won't find him actually kind of logged into any secret societies. I mean, you can argue about, the Council on Foreign Relations, and certainly that was...
And trilateral, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Council of Foreign Relations was also authored, if you will use that word, by Rockefeller. And I find it interesting, I think it's around 1921 at that same time, and I've always thought this interesting. That's when Edward Bernays hit this country with two books, Crystallizing Public Opinion and Propaganda. It seemed like it was a joint attack on getting this thing through. And he made some smarmy comments, Bernays did, in his book. He called it, what did he call it? I'll find it later, but he didn't call it Council on Foreign Relations. He said, something pretty close to it. And I just thought it was a real, Weisenheimer wink and elbow in the ribs of all of us. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, I'll get that and I'll find it and I'll bring it out. Sorry that I was trying to recall that, but I said,
no, it's okay.
Because it was like counsel. I think he meant counsel, like counselor on public relations. And I'm like, man, that's pretty close. But Bernays obviously wrote two books that I'm telling you, folks, if you want to know the game plan on manipulation, even in an era before TV, read Crystallizing Public Opinion and Propaganda. And Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud, tapped his uncle for all these, methodologies, if you will, methodologies rather. And apparently Sigmund wasn't too happy about it when he found nephew Bernays was using it for something that Freud didn't necessarily intend it to be used for. But man, it was effective, and that's another whole.
Well,
story.
there's another important person who read Freud, and his name was Adolf Hitler. He read one of Freud's books about the psychology of crowds, and that's a known reference from Hitler. So he learned a lot, like Bernays, about how to manipulate large bodies of people, and he did that masterfully. You can just look that, through German history. But on the subject of these kind of societies that everybody's kind of interested in, the conspiratorial realm, I guess, I have an interesting clip that took place between Brzezinski and Brian Lamb of C-SPAN. And Lamb asked him a pretty good question. He asked him, everybody's curious about you because of connection to secret societies, and they see you as a conspirator. And Brzezinski's pretty sharp, and he responded like this. And this is a clip I think everybody should see. It's included in Occult Obama. He says, "I don't believe in this notion of secret societies controlling people, but of course in any political system there are over-the-table and under-the-table arrangements. As far as the organizations you have mentioned, Bilderberger, CFR, and Trilateral, they are all on top of the table organizations." So to Brzezinski, those are all, people outside of that kind of more elite realm think of them as these secret handshake places. But to Brzezinski, those are all easily analyzed and easily vetted organizations, which means that he knows where the real secret things take place. Anyway, he goes on to say, "We know what they are. We know what they do. We probably exaggerate their influence in many cases, but more importantly, they operate overtly." And then he kind of continues to go on, and later on in the thing, he talks about, different de facto, organizations that they meet. And, if you want to find something, and it's interesting, it's a thing for further research. I think even on David Rockefeller's Wikipedia site, you can see how many organizations David Rockefeller is associated with.
Amazing.
And there are organizations the public's never heard about.
Exactly.
I mean, you can look it up right now. You can just go to David Rockefeller's site. There's like 50 organizations. The provenance of which the Americans would just be like, "What's that? Who does that? What's that?" And that, David Rockefeller's supremely well connected. So anyway, my thing about Brzezinski is that, it's important to see who these guys are. He's clearly, to me, an occultist of one side or another. I mean, his book titles kind of give that away. But, going back to Obama, I just wanted to kind of emphasize other things. When he was running for president, he would say all kinds of things that were clearly meant for the ruling class, and then, certain things that are meant for the public. But he said, one of these, he had a meeting that took place in Los Angeles, and he emphasized that he's a cousin of Dick Cheney, and also a friend of a character by the name of James Whitmore, who is an actor in Hollywood. Well, James Whitmore was a Skull and Bones Society member, so by saying that he's a friend of James Whitmore, to me, I interpreted that as him being on board with kind of the Skull and Bones Society. And, I think everybody should kind of realize that Obama is saying these things with an inside, wink and a nod. So
right.
I have that in there. And, I have other things about Obama, about how, he bows down before foreign dignitaries. He can't do anything off a teleprompter, so you can see all his teleprompter mishaps. He won't put his heart over the national flag, no American pin, and, he's clearly some kind of New World Order stooge. He just doesn't care about the nationalism of the United States, clearly. And,
But do you think in this day and age, honestly, since we've entered whatever you want to call this period, though we have presidents that talk something and walk something differently and are really now in a period, and I'll say it goes back to Daddy Bush, and you can even argue Carter, whatever, and yet they talk nationalism and patriotism, and yet they're selling us down the river into a one world order. Absolutely. Oh, yeah, no doubt. And the thing is about these guys is they're beyond money and they're beyond national boundaries because they don't have limitations of, what the middle class or what's called the middle class or lower class have. They don't have to worry about taxes in a lot of ways. They have shelters. They, aren't poor, so they're not stuck with dealing with a lot of the administrative bodies or the onerous, state and federal authorities. They have ways of getting out of trouble. I mean, these guys don't have to worry about that, so their sensibilities aren't even nationalistic, in my opinion. And I think I think you're right. They just parrot, that party nationalism line for the public's benefit so that they'll keep working and paying taxes. The late Joe Meehan, and sorry that we've lost her, but she would go on and say, you take a look at the terminology, and with Clinton, all of a sudden the word interdependence became a buzzword. And that means, for all intents and purposes, a blurring of national boundaries and an amalgamation of all things. This interdependence means we're all going to be one big happy family, which, of course, has always been one of the great lies from Satan. And although it looks like it's going to be good, it has to be. It's the old story, too, William. Nobody bite into a poison apple if it didn't look shiny on the outside. Right. And that's what's being sold now. And I look at all these kids going through the public school system and all this bit about the green movement and multiculturalism. All sounds great. And on face, if it were for a non-nefarious purpose, I'd say beautiful, but it's not. And that's another thing that's happening from the inside out. I'm sorry, go ahead. Well, no, I was just on the subject of education. I have a clip in there where Mitt Romney was bagging on Obama fairly because Obama wants to put this is unbelievable. It's actually true. Obama wants to have sex education in kindergarten. So he's here. Obama is kind of mocking Mitt Romney for being a white middle-aged stooge by, kind of having a funny voice. And then he goes, so Mitt Romney is making fun of me for asking for sex education in the schools and blah, blah, blah. And then he follows up and finishes, and Obama says, but it's the right thing to do. I mean, that's sick. It is. He's a sick puppy. They all are. I know. I mean, how did this guy even stay elected? And it just gets worse and worse. I mean, I think that when you look at all the stuff I've compiled and put it together, I think you can actually have a clearer picture of these guys' personalities. They're as perverse as you can get. I tell you what, why don't we at this point also give people kind of like some kind of shape to what you're doing? What do you have in mind as far as the number of documentaries you're going to release? And without putting any pressure on you, when do you think that those might be available? I'm trying. I just have a very busy schedule. I have some free time coming up, so they'll probably come out in a month. Maybe, I can send you something once I'm done. But it's I have everything compiled. It's just really putting the time together to edit and really get everything together. So
I think, sooner than later. But I definitely have, I have scheduled lots of documentaries. My next one, after I finish these three and get them out, my next one is going to be about elite perversion, past and present. So I'm going to go from all the way earliest history all the way up today and show that, a lot of elitists engage in things that the public would just not be believed to be possible. That's why, you have a ruling class in America the way it is now. So, it's a repeat of other decadent societies.
This is kind of on the side, but when you said that, you talk about powerful people and how debauched they really are. I can't remember what luminary in the United States, I guess a former European something or other, I think it was being tried the death of his wife and he was defended by Dershowitz.
Right, von Bülow.
There you go. And of course, now this is in the Hollywood thing, but to me, I'm left with this as a certain kind of brand, if you will. After the trial's over and von Bülow's happy, Dershowitz got him off. If you remember this at all, I don't know. Dershowitz looks into the back of the seat and he realizes that he just defended a fiend and won.
Right.
And he said something like, "You are a very strange man." And von Bülow looked at him and he goes, "You have no idea."
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't argue with that. People have no idea.
No.
We all get upset about these characters. We'd like to whoop them upside the head. But it goes back to this idea of, like, look, you're dealing with messengers from below, and we deal not with flesh and blood, but principalities of darkness. So forget all that kind of stuff. That is not the way to combat them. And unfortunately, it has gotten so rife. And, William, I always threaten to do an article, and I probably should do that for the upcoming e-zine, about it. This is such a godly country. And please explain to me the symbology, from D.C. to
Explain to me the Franklin scandal, the cover-up, and the total manipulation of the state and federal authorities for that. That's one of the things I would handle. But that's not just a local problem. If you go to all these other countries, the same kind of thing happened in Belgium, Portugal, France, England. It's in every country that. It's amazing. And the cover-up. Mexico, Chile. This is, and then you have the Catholic Church, which is basically what they've done is, it's amazing how they've gotten away with criminality for decades.
I had on Ellen Lachter, and she's just a great person, a clinical psychologist that deals with ritual abuse victims down in San Diego. She's a Jersey girl. And come on quite a bit, and I really want to get her back on again. It was always a good thing. And I was always amazed at her resiliency, both her and her husband. Can you imagine doing this stuff all the time?
No.
I don't understand either. And she came on with the No Blitz at one time and some other folks. This is the sordid underbelly of this country, which nobody really wants to know about, and that's understandable. But the fact that it's there, and even goes back to things, and I don't know if I'm going too far afield here, but, when JonBenet Ramsey, whatever that was about, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? How does somebody get into a household? I won't go on with it any further because I think everybody understands the scenario. I'm not understanding this unless this was a sacrifice of a virgin around the winter solstice and the feast of Saturnalia, or as we people know it as, Xmas.
Right. Well, I think that, I've heard a lot of stuff I've read a lot about that, and I got Cyril Wecht, who's a pretty well-known forensic.
Right.
Right, yeah, and he's done a lot of good stuff about Kennedy. But he said that if that hadn't happened, the state of her body, her parents would have both gone to jail. That she was already, according to him, she was already else was going on. And I think I vaguely remember discussing with you, but, after the real party, after the first party starts at about 10 or 11 o'clock, apparently the other party starts, where, a lot of people come in late at night and then the really evil stuff takes place. So, they probably had a Christmas party and then everything else happened and God only knows what happened. I don't know. But the family knew something, I believe.
That is absolutely horrible from top down. And it's not unusual for these characters who have made a pact. And we can explain that. We could not prove that. So it's all, I know it's all hearsay. But, this stuff seems to occur at certain times. And it always involves, children. And you understand this fully, and so does everyone else. And I mean, you don't have to be a Christian to get it. But there's one thing I don't think that the Lord can brook more than anything else, and that is do not mess with the children. I mean, I think that's pretty clear in Scripture. What do you think, William?
No, I agree. I mean, it says to do this to one of me, it'd be better to have a lodestone tied around your neck and thrown into water. So I think that's the quote offhand. But yeah, these are the evil times, man, and it needs to be rejected. And it's really. And the thing is that there's nobody really shouting from the rooftops. I mean, the silence from the Christian field is. It's amazing. I mean, these people are getting paid, pastors, and I just don't see a lot of them out there really fighting, this, I would call it an occult conspiracy, which is another title for a movie that I would like to do that shows that this is not just some kind of political field or cultural field or entertainment field, but it all meshes together, and a lot of these, same themes are happening not only on a, really on a global scale. So,
I want to mention something to you, and then I want you to share with us your website, what you have coming. Okay? And
sure.
I wanted to mention this a certain bit with Jacob, but the Uticans and I would talk about when they would go out. And Uticans were the last ones that I know that went out and were proactive in trying to, well, not in trying to, they gave presentations, try to take what took place, with the W2Cs and such on 9/11 and break it down. And I would say fairly successful because they were good at what they did. Andy and Herb both covered certain separate elements inside that day, and they did okay. And the one thing we talked about, and Jacob had mentioned this before in the first hour, and that is when you talk to people and you kind of get them to understand that something wasn't really right that day, but what happens is you can see it in their eyes when they're with you, and then they jump to the horrible question, and that is, then you mean that our government kills us? And
right.
call that the second level. And when you could see them get to the second level, and then you know that they were in deep trouble, and this is going to be a battle to fight this cognitive dissonance.
Right.
And don't you think that that's what we're facing? I mean, this whole thing about 9/11, the shameful thing about us is that we have short memory spans. TV will sweep this away as quickly as it brought it to us. By the end of the month, 9/11 isn't going to be on anybody's agenda. They're going to forget it.
Right.
And then, in a sense, I hate to say this, we can go back to work, but
right.
That's the point, don't you find? I'm having this deja vu, like I even asked you this once before, and maybe I did. But the point is that you can break it down that things are not right, as it was with the Lusitania, as it was with the with Pearl Harbor, and with the USS Maine. And the thing is, then people jump you, and they go, and then you got a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. I mean, I think that's how these guys, the politicians, have gotten away with so much over time. That's how they get away with it in all kinds of tyrannical societies. Is that people are busy, easily distracted. They have family problems. They got to pay bills, and the politicians become their masters because of that.
And and truthfully, a Renaissance landscaper, a friend of mine. And we had many discussions. He was probably ahead of the curve as far as this goes. I always think about contacting him and saying, I remember what we talked about, starting with the Knights Templar, but I'm like, do you understand where it's going? I have no idea if he's on the same page. I probably won't do it. But there's the point, though. I mean, is it time not, I think, for people to realize that government is dysfunctional for a reason? They're not your friend, and they will fake being an advocate. But in essence, they basically step back and let the dogs loose on all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that second level you're talking about how they kill us, I think that the people who think that it doesn't happen should see how many times the government sent people off to die, whether they kill on 9/11, whether they send them off to bogus wars and die, or have their lives ruined or are shattered, PSD and PTSD, or drink themselves to death or commit suicide. You know, they should see how many poisons the government has allowed into the marketplace and killed people, how many poisonous pills they put into the marketplace, how the shoddy, you know, air that they've allowed people to breathe over time, the lousy working conditions. And if you look that back through history, it shouldn't come as a surprise that the government could kill 3,000 people and, you know, use that as an excuse for more war, you know, or more, and for more social breakdown and, you know, social control, really. I mean, that was 9/11 was a tyrannical act, and it was fomented a kind of dictatorial, you know, environment here in the United States, no doubt. And so if you see it all together, and both elections were probably stolen, and you know, when you put it all together, people should not be surprised. You don't want to believe it. It's just like, you know, you don't want to believe John Wayne Gacy is next door, you know, killing little boys either. But you know, these things happen, unfortunately. And it's just not seeing the world. And people have a naive, you know, rosy tinted glasses view of the world. I used to have it. And unfortunately, that's just not the way it is. I mean, things definitely ebb and flow. Things get better and worse. But right now, we're at a low point, and we're still going down, you know. And people better wake up and see it as a spiritual issue, not as a political issue or a cultural issue. I mean, these are evil times. And I mean, it's sad that people don't get it. They just adapt to it. And I think that that's really a historical constant, is that more people will adapt to evil than fight it. I think that that's, you know, what you see in places like Nazi Germany, Soviet Union. I mean, it's just like what Solzhenitsyn said, that they should have fought the Secret Service right away. Instead, they just adapted, and I can't remember his famous quote, but you know, when they were coming for people, if the Russians would have fought right away, they wouldn't have gotten away with all their abuses, you know.
I will say one thing on a good note, and I think Rita, who was a woman that was, I'm getting a little here. Rita, who was the daughter of a German who jumped ship in the United States, got married, had a baby here. Rita went back, but what happened was the INS caught him, whatever the INS was at that time.
Yeah, I think you told me that story, yeah.
And she gets raised it, but the thing that she told me, which, I mean, I'll still say, look, you know, we are better than the rest. She said when they knew that Germany was done, and they were sitting in some hamlet, you know, away from the cities, and that they just prayed that the United States got to them before the Russians did.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, good for us in that sense. Let's face that, okay?
Yeah.
All right. But let me go on to what I said before and have you tell the folks about what you're doing, about occult911.com, and what's shaking, so they can go there and see what you're up to.
Well, I'm going to have to redo my website here in the next month, so they can go to www.occult911.com. I do have a couple other documentaries that are on there. The Occult Hollywood Part 1, Part 2 is coming out. I also have one on Aleister Crowley. And then my book is available pretty much on the web. You can get it hard copy, electronic copy, whatever you want. And then once I get my next website up, I'm going to have like a Facebook, you know, button and a Tweeter button and things that are really kind of my next step. I really am kind of a Luddite. I don't really
That's all right.
do the technology things very well. I'm about 2 steps behind the rest of the public, but then I'll hopefully, you know, be able to you know, have everything taken care of, and I'll announce a release and send out a press release probably in the next month or two when I get everything done. There's
something I appreciate about and I find attractive about you, and that is I can hear in you the zeal that was once in me before life stopped me. So I always like that line from Homer Simpson, oh, dreams, that's what I had before life stopped me.
All right.
But I hear in you the enthusiasm. I mean, you're on a lot of information. It's a discovery thing. There's nothing like it. Kira, who had done some work on Garfield and Gateau and all that, I mean, I asked her, she had done a show with us, and I said, you know, but did you enjoy it? And she said yes. And I think you're seeing the same thing. It'll take a lot out of you. It's almost like it's a bottomless pit. But the joy of the hunt and to nail things down, I think, is probably what drives all researchers to do what they do, in spite of the fact that sometimes the topics, as you found out, are not all that pleasant.
Right. And, you know, the things that I mean, there's other things that I will discuss in this upcoming movie. One is the connection between George Bush Jr., Michael Aquino, Paul Vallely, Colonel Paul Vallely, who's on Fox News all the time. Vallely and Aquino both wrote a paper, and I'm sure this is just one that's been published. I'm sure they have other ones that were never published, but it was called From PSYOP to Mind War. And their idea was just to constantly barrage people with myths, not just to have a one instance of a PSYOP, but just create a mind war environment of pure terror all the time, confusion, and using, high technology. And, I think that we saw that institute. And the scary thing is that Fox News is putting this Vallely guy, who's a buddy of Michael Aquino, who's like the head of the Temple of Satan.
Yep.
Yeah, he's on there 30 or 40 times. I got pictures of him. So, it's scary that these people are being, allowing themselves to be bombarded, not just with PSYOPs, but with a guy who is implicated in the most vicious crimes. And then there's Hunter S. Thompson, who's familiar with Aquino. Hunter S. Thompson was in San Francisco during the 70s. I can't remember the exact dates offhand. I have to go back and look at my notes. But there's some things that have been expurgated from the Internet that people will be very interested to know.
I will tell you that privately I loved Hunter S. Thompson's work. I think, even though I know now that politics is a sham, his work on Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail, 1972, is excellent. When he wanted to be incisive, he was sharp. When he wanted to bust people's balls and go after them, he was the best.
He knew it, but, he knew the underground, too. This is a guy who went to the Bohemian Grove. He used to hang out at all kinds of scary clubs in San Francisco. He, and some of the deeper, darker stuff is horrific. They're not good.
I'm not comfortable at all with his death, by the way, and it was frightening. And Franklin cover-up that supposedly that was Paul, what was his name?
Paul Bonacci?
Yeah, Bonacci, who said from his testimony that Hunter S. Thompson was filming a snuff movie. Is that correct? Is that
right? Yeah, and there's other corroborating stories about that too.
I hate that, but if it's true, it's true again. I don't want to go there, don't want to believe it, but when Thompson was good, man, he was the best.
Well, and there's other stories he talks about Satanism, and he was in the latter parts of his career, he was writing articles for Sports Illustrated.
Yes,
he'd have to put out. And one of them mentions Satanism straight out. People hunting out for. It's scary. He clearly. And his house was called Owl Farm. That was his place. So you have the owl that flies at night, just like the Bohemian Grove.
Right.
It just goes on and on. You can make the occult connections. When he died, his girlfriend at the time said something really strange. And instead of it wasn't a Christian thing. What she said to the public was, "He ruled Terra." Terra. He ruled Terra. And it's always haunted me about that. He was, when you really look into his character, he was a scary dude. Guns all the time, drunk all the time, got up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, stayed up till 6.
God, I love it.
Yeah, he was crazy. The writing on the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the intro driving into Vegas is
the best.
A classic.
The
guy... But, he touched a lot of those sides. The Hells Angels, the San Francisco at the time of, its great changes in the late 60s and 70s. He was there. He was there. He was a political junkie. He knew how power worked. Yes. He knew how scummy these people were. He knew how scummy Nixon was. He knew how scummy the system was. He was relatively honest about it. He was...
And yet Nixon loved to talk to him about football. Remember?
Yeah,
get him in the back. About Las Vegas, my greatest line is there's nothing more wholly unmanageable than the man in the depths of an ether binge.
Man.
I want to tell you right now, folks, we're going to open up the phone lines. Jim graciously has allowed us to go over. He didn't know you would ask, but still in all, it's his call, and it's his right to do whatever he wishes. He is very, very generous with his time. And if I give you his email, you can send him, nice letters and fine gifts and money. But the line to call in is 618. I think Lady Viz laughed out in the living room there. I don't know. 618-912-4681. Once again, 618-912-4681. Call in if you wish. We have a lot of ground to cover, and William, you're okay. We can stay on a little bit longer.
Yeah, I got another probably 15 minutes to a half an hour. Once the family comes home.
Then it's over.
It's over. Yeah.
All right, went under the guideline. Yeah, I think Gordon Comstock wants to call and ask you about something with regard to J.D. Salinger.
Okay.
And also I got an email from Jeff the Long Rider from Redacted News in D.C., and he says he might be able to help you with your projects. Remember you had asked me something along those lines?
Oh, yeah. No, and then I'm also doing a book on Aleister Crowley. It's called Aleister Crowley, A Visual Study. So I have pieces from my original research, but when I did my book originally, I had probably 20 pictures or 30 pictures I put into the book, but I actually have about 300. So I was going to make a more visual scrapbook, but I really don't have graphic skills to kind of compile everything in a kind of, something more palatable to watch where you could do stenciling and all that stuff. So, layouts and those kind of things. The original research is done.
I'm going to hook you guys up because Jeff is a good man. And,
okay, I'll CC you on the book.
Okay.
You can take a look at the rough draft.
All right.
Not pretty.
Also, we have a caller, so God's mercy on you, swine.
Okay.
Come on, bro.
It's Gordon.
Oh, I'm disappointed. All right, Gordon, go ahead. I kind of prefaced what you were going to ask and have at it.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that it's so hard to track down. You really can't. I don't know how you would pursue it doggedly, but you can take a pot shot at it now and then. And one of the few people I would bother even asking would be William. But you guys jogged my memory of it when you were talking about Kissinger, and Kissinger had such a nebulous, a strange military intelligence role in World War II. And it reminded me of another guy who had a kind of a nebulous World War II military intelligence career, and that was J.D. Salinger, who later went on to write Catcher in the Rye, that he's best known for, and then he dropped out of sight completely, and that's always been so weird to me. And of course, the novel Catcher in the Rye has been linked in conspiracy circles to having MK Ultra triggers in it. You see that in the Mel Gibson conspiracy theory movie. Of course, you got the Mark David Chapman thing going on there too. William, it's a long shot, I know, but do you know anything about Salinger?
Not too much. I do know that Chapman, there is an occult connection between Chapman. One of Crowley's followers was Kenneth Anger, and he actually was met with Chapman a week before he shot Lennon. And he had Anger. I've been doing some reading about Anger, and he knew that Chapman was mind controlled. He actually said that Manson was mind controlled, which is interesting. But as far as J.D. Salinger, maybe he saw something he didn't like, and did a Kaczynski type thing where he just dropped out and decided to go native. I don't know.
Not normal. So to me, that's proof that there was something going on with Salinger. Something happened.
Let me just share something with you. And I was writing for the Rutland Herald at the time when I found out about Salinger living in New Hampshire and being very reclusive to the point where he supposedly had a tunnel that he could walk from his house and emerge to get his mail from the PO box, from the post, from the box on the street. We call them mailboxes. Okay, great. And then he would just go back again. And I never really understood that. But what Gordon said, and William, what you're talking about, in those days in the late 70s, I never thought much about it. But now I'm thinking about him like, if you're living like that, and although he was healthy, I'm sure, I think I understand why you would do that. I mean, I can completely understand that.
Yeah, I mean, he might have seen things that just freaked him out, and he's done. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in the ruins of Nazi Germany and see what happened there, and see what and when the Russians came in and did all kinds of nasty things. Americans shot a lot of people too. I mean, it's not pretty. And then, there's all kinds of things that could have freaked him out. Operation Paperclip
and Gordon, if you're still there, does it not seem? I mean, let's take a look at this. Orwell sequestered himself, if not exiled himself, to Jura, and yet, in a way that's more socially acceptable, did not Salinger, in a way, just sequester himself in isolation in a house in New Hampshire?
I really never put those two together, but they both turned into hermits, really.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying they're on par with Kaczynski, who was the Unabomber guy, but Kaczynski had come through an MK Ultra program, and he clearly had, he was hyper intelligent, but he probably experienced it enough that, going to, where was he, Idaho or Montana, and living alone made sense,
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Story too. Yeah, I don't know how that all.
He's obviously crazy, but.
All right, Gordon, you got a follow-up or what?
I actually do, and I guess this would just be to, because it's so frustrating, William. Because this is what I get so often. What's your reaction when because you're the kind of guy obviously that brings this up from time to time with dolts, when you show them, say, you point out how George Bush Jr. and others like him, but let's just stick with him, G.W. Bush Jr., how he would do the satanic El Cornuto signs.
Right, yeah.
In public, go out of his way to do them, and
right.
The typical reaction is, oh, well, he's doing the University of Texas hook 'em horns sign. What's your reaction when you get that from people?
Well, some of those are hook 'em horns, but the time when he was with the Queen and other things, he's obviously making the satanic hand signal. So, I think that people just want to not believe. They don't believe in evil. They don't believe people are evil, and they don't believe in active evil in the world, and it's unfortunate, but it's frustrating. I think that.
Yeah, the guy never went to Texas University. He's got no affiliation with it.
But
right.
did you see? Now hold on a second. Do you remember that when when Shrub and his wife went to England, and the story on that in the newspapers. Do you remember the photo?
Yeah.
Where his wife is down there, and on his side he has his hand down, and he puts him in the horn.
All right.
You guys see that at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it looks
like a 5-year-old kid.
In context. Yeah, it's right in context with all of his other behavior. So the thing is like, maybe once or twice, but if you see all the secret society signs, he says, I've got clips you'd be shocked where he mentions 93. When he was leaving office in 2007, I have a copy of a speech that he gave in front of the press club, and he mentions 93. He subtly threatens the press club what he did was something really subtle, very, very subtle, but he had a copy, he had a totem of somebody who had died in 9/11 and on Flight 93 in his pocket. He says, I keep this in my pocket. I keep this totem in my pocket as a remembrance. Well, the creepy element of that is that, one, he mentions 93, which are Crowley's numbers, Thelema and Agape, and Kabbalistic numbers. But most serial killers like to keep remembrance of the people they've killed. And it can be interpreted easily by anybody out there as like, you better watch it. You better not say anything. So there's a lot more stuff about. That Bush's kid said, my dad is a beautiful person. And a beautiful person is a very common term. And you can see this in films, and I'll put it in Hollywood too, and it's referenced by Tarantino, but it's also referenced by Marilyn Manson. They have a song called The Beautiful People.
Exactly. Yeah.
But his own daughter said, my dad is a beautiful person. And there's the double speak, You've got he's a great person, but also there's the occultism right there.
Hey, William, and I'm sure you're obviously familiar with that song, The Beautiful People by Marilyn Manson.
Right.
I was listening to it one day, not voluntarily, but I was listening to it, and if you count the beats to it, the repetitious beat, the beautiful people, count the syllables, and it's 666.
Wow.
Over and over.
I'm sure it's intentional.
Yeah.
That whole album, Antichrist Superstar, is just, if you want to see the satanic mindset, there's a perfect example. It's astonishing. God. So as far as, the Cornuto sign, it's just one of many. The Bush family is so well versed in the occult. It's astonishing. Once you put that lens on and decide to look at it that way, your jaw will drop. Just like when you watch Harry Potter. Once you put the lens and you want to see what the occult is, you will see that lady J.K., who changed her middle name to the letter K, the 11th letter of the alphabet. It's not representing a name or anything, but you will see that it's an encyclopedic, not very knowledgeable understanding of all occult doctrines from beginning to end. I mean, she made it as like a child's fable to understand the occult, plain and simple. At the very end of the last movie, the kids grow up and go back to Hogwarts, right? And they go into this like portal or whatever at the train station, and it's 93. That's 9 3/4, which is kind of like a 93. So they go into this thing, but it's exactly 19 years later from the last, showdown with Voldemort, and 19 is a very high number, which I've learned recently represents the morning star in numerology, and so you see that 19 numbers repeated all the time. There are 19 terrorists. It's not 20, not 18, and you can actually there's other occult books out there that are like 19th Street. So 19 has a lot of meaning, which I've realized, and that's how I came to the conclusion about 11 and 77. I would just see them in different environments and say this has to have some kind of meaning to it. So anyway, the occult conspiracy is there.
All right, Gordon.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, get lost.
Okay, bye-bye, you guys.
I'll see you, Gordon. Take care. All right, folks. Again, you're welcome to call in about anything you want to. And what I'm gonna do is, William, unless you got, if you're curtailed, let me know. Otherwise, I want to throw this to 9/11 if you want to field some questions for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about 9/11 and my view of it, sure, I'd be happy to.
All right, folks, and like I said, we're opening up the phones if you're so interested to talk to William or ask questions to both of us, and that number again is 618-912-4681. No, you always hate when I listen to talk shows. They give the number so fast. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I can't do anything with that. Right. It is 618-912-4681, and I'll go check in with Jim, the most patient man in the entire universe, and see what we got going on here. I had mentioned also, and I think a lot of folks heard, take it for what it's worth. I mean, all right, let me frame this. First of all, yes, there is a fascination with the occult, with numerology, but there also is a stand-up, obvious thread in the Bible about numerology. Look, let me ask you this, William, did you ever think about this? But the world is made of geometry and numbers. That's the whole idea, even down to an atom. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I think everything's numerological, but here's the thing is that there's numerology for, I guess, God's side and numbers for their side.
Nothing is good or bad except what people use it for. And having said that, I think we have a caller. And caller, if you're there, come on.
Yes, I am.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
But the planes, if the government did it, what happened to the bodies? Oh, my God.
They went to heaven.
Yeah.
This is the long man, the long runner from the land of the district of, what is that,
Criminals, Washington, D.C.
Yeah, William, you're going to probably be talking to this guy later on with regard to your project. But go ahead, Jeff, let's hear from you, really. And you've been around a lot lately. There's a lot of stuff gone down. But with what it pertains to, let's just say with 9/11 and all the crap well, obviously I know that's happened. Shoot us some stuff that's going on.
Well, one thing that's currently bugging me is the series that's going on this week in the Toronto hearings. We've got this panel of people most haven't heard of. A few of them I have. Kevin Ryan, which I have a few issues with right now because he really hates the Rock Creek Free Press. But they're trying to get this panel together to come up with consensus on what's good evidence and good research about 9/11 and going towards a possible investigation as opposed to the bad evidence. And I know that some of the people involved in that are I mean, the problem with research and looking into this stuff, that the idea that somebody is going to come up with what is approved and not approved, it's this whole group consensus mentality stuff that I can't stand. It's just, if you're looking at it as a scientific model, you investigate it and you propose a theory. If the science works, if the theory holds up, it'll stick for a while until somebody comes up with some other information or investigative work that's going to disprove something that went on. So it just seems like they're trying to build up what is, I guess, approved by the committee from like the Church of the Controlled Demolition and the other types out there that don't want to go down the rabbit hole and see what's really going on.
Jeff, I'm going to ask you if you got a question for William, only because we got somebody behind you, but I mean, by all means, do you have anything you want to pose to either him or me?
No, just like what they were saying in the chat room, I've been drinking my Dogfish Head beer, so I won't belabor that point and go into that, and he can contact me through the description about the other stuff about the website and all that.
Also, Jeff, I mean, really, we've emailed before you came on. Mm-hmm. You've been through a lot with whatever you want to call it, for better or for worse. And you've been in this, right in the middle of that stuff, and I'd like you to come on and chronicle it without a doubt. Whether you can give William a hand with his future publication, I appreciate you, volunteering it, and I'll hook you two guys up. But, I mean, I would like you to come on, Jeff, also, because, like I said, you've seen a lot of stuff building up to this denouement, which is 9/11. And I would love to have you come on and break some of this stuff down, because it's been a kind of a wild ride for the last 4 to 6 weeks, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, especially with this 10th anniversary ramp up to it, it's just, I mean, it is completely ridiculous. I mean, they just recently, right before this event for tomorrow, they banned all of the 9/11 first responders, the police and firefighters, from coming to the event. And I'm thinking it's just because they are afraid that these guys are going to show up in wheelchairs and iron lungs and going to ask some really pertinent questions about bombs in the buildings and things like that, and they don't want that. So, but yeah, let's get together and do a show.
All right, thanks for sharing that with us, and we're going to do it. Thanks for calling in.
All right.
All right, we're going to go to another caller. Jim, if you have that person, please come on.
Hey, Viz, what's up, buddy?
Oh, God.
Yeah, oh God, it's Gene from Brooklyn. Hey, look, I just want to thank Jeff Long, because he does have good taste in Belgian ales. I have a nice Belgian that he endorsed, so thanks, Jeff. But I'm wondering about this conference in Canada. Is this Canada conference on 9/11 investigation, is this just going to reaffirm the 9/11 Commission?
I'm going to throw it over to William. Are you aware of what's going on in Toronto?
Not really. I mean, I know that there's some kind of gathering there, but I don't have any idea what the purpose is.
Can I play?
I mean, they're not letting, like Jeff just said, they're not letting the firefighters and a lot of the first responders come down because they don't want to see a bunch of disabled people from the event. So it seems like, this is going to happen. The Canadians are just going to reinforce the BS that they've been telling us.
Are you trying to go to Canada again? Gino?
Yeah, I've got a bad connection here, I think.
All right, we're having a little breakup here. All right. Did you hear the fact that I asked you whether or not you want to start another war with Canada?
I can't make that out.
All right, we'll try to spin that up deal.
All right, look, you know what? You better get another caller on, because I'm enjoying this Abby here, and Viz, we still love you, babe. Don't worry about it.
All right.
Okay.
Have another Belgian beer on me, bro. Yeah, all right.
You got it, pal. I'll see you later.
See ya. William, I think we can talk about this as well, and I'm getting feedback.
I had a hard time hearing you on that one. Can you say that again, please?
All right. Am I okay?
Now I hear you.
All right. Now it sounds right. Okay. What Gene was asking about was this Toronto conference. And,
right.
And it was Jeff Long who also told me that there were problems there Craig Renke, who I think does the best work of anybody researching the three locales,
right.
For 9/11. And, I don't know. I just said, like, why are we doing these conferences? I mean, people make money. It's high profile. But in the end, what do you really get done? And it seems it's so much more fraught with problems. And, I looked at the roster of who was there, and I'm like, yeah, the same usual idiots. I never read a thing from David Ray Griffith. He got nothing he can tell me about. I don't care about this crap. I always looked at the stories, the reports from the newspapers when they can't gag the first accounts of it. And
right.
So that was never a problem with me. But they had these conferences, like Gene was saying, and Jeff had given me a heads up that all kinds of stuff is going down, and there's all these infighting. It's like, screw the goddamn conferences. You can do webinars. What do you want to do? Do you want to make money, or do you want to go ahead and maybe make a profit? That's fine, but share the information at a lower cost for everybody. Who the hell is going to fly anymore? Go up to Toronto? Are you kidding? You got to have a passport now.
What kind of benefit are they going to derive out of that? That's what I want to know. It's probably some kind of infantile necessity to be around other people who have similar ideas and, sound important to one another. I don't have any idea, but I do most of my work by myself for a reason, because one, it stays what I really want to say, and two, I don't get bogged down in other people, piecemealing, hair splitting, arguing, getting distracted, what good is a conference? Why don't they just put it online on YouTube and people can study it and see if it makes sense? Write a book.
I got down at Congress with Tom Horn and these other Christians and all this, sharing, absolutely indispensable information. If you got the money to come out here, get rooms in what the hell's the name of that place in Missouri? Goddamn.
Branson.
Yeah, Branson. All right. It was an off season, so you can get rooms that's like 3 times too high for half the price. And I'm sorry. If it's indispensable knowledge, what are you looking for? Do you want to help the people, or do you want to make money? Hello, it's about money. And conferences nowadays are fraught with all kinds of problems. So why are we doing this, man? I'm not casting any aspersions against Craig. If they're guests, I understand it. But the thing is, this is not the way to go anymore. Not any longer.
I think here's the thing for me is that you can draw conclusions right now that things are so bad that I think the average person should get out from under the finger of the banks, the politicians, all the corporate shysters, and try to do something on themselves and sit around and talk about it. I think that it's clear to anybody who's paying attention that things have gone way, way wrong, and the country is out of control. And you better start planning for the future in a way that takes that into account. It's my understanding in some other banking, like in Greece right now, that things are so screwed up, everybody's gone back to the land and lived off their farm, which is smart. And they don't have to rely on the bankers. That's how you starve the bankers. Starving a banker is like an angel earns their wings, So grow your own food. Don't borrow money. Get out of the financial system. Only operate on hard commodities. Be creative. Create your own stuff. And barter and trade it. Right? That's really where we should be at as a country, is just get away from these people and stop relying on these expensive commodities like gas and energy and, maneuver around it. So
let me ask you, are you...
And this police state. It's terrible.
Are you under the gun? Is it time for you to go?
Yeah.
All right. I'll stick around, folks, for a little bit if Jim's okay with it, and I'll take whatever callers. If not, then we'll just call it a day. But before you do that, William, thanks a lot for coming on. Also, just let people know and make them aware that you're going to be producing these documentaries and they're going to come out pretty quick.
Yeah, they've already been compiled. I had some summertime stuff I was doing, so I'm ready to kind of batten down the hatches and really get them out there. So there'll be 3 90-minute ones, and then hopefully if I can get my book is halfway done, a visual study. I just got all kinds of other projects, but these ones are come out, and hopefully they'll be of interest. They'll be available.
All right, and also give them the website.
Occult911.com, and I'm going to have it updated. I'm kind of negotiating with the host provider right now to try to, like I said earlier, just kind of upgrade it into, 2.0, so it'll be a little more interesting. Hopefully I'll be able to get someplace where people can leave notes and purchase some products and stuff like that. So it's Occult 911. If anybody has any questions, they can send me an email at occult911@gmail.com.
All right, look, thanks for coming on, and we are definitely going to put up the long-lost audio that somebody, Carl Reiner, has recorded. And, yeah, you're one of the good guys, and you've done a lot of work, and all we can do is the best we can to get that promoted. But, you know, like you said, you know, you got a job, you got a life, you got a family, and you do this on the side because not necessarily you want to, like, make a million, but that you want to get the information out because it is important. And
well, you know, it'll always be there. It'll always be online. You can get it on Amazon Video on Demand. That's where another distribution channel that I'll be using, and it's worked out well already. People can see my films on there, and you know, you always have a different approach. And you know, these truths and finding these hidden things are a way of defense against this cognitive infiltration and just the incredible amount of lies and secrecy that are suffusing our entire, unfortunately, our globe since 9/11. And you know, what it all comes down to is we're in a spiritual war. Frankly, it's not a political, cultural war. It's not right-left. It's about cosmology and Almighty God and his enemy, and he's marshaling his forces. And you know, it's not looking good for the good guys, and it never really has. But at least we can stay aware and alert. And you know, I think like on your website it says stop following. Well, I can't remember exactly verbatim what you said, but don't believe the evil jerks. You know?
Oh, that was Angie. Yeah, don't obey.
Well, she did it. She's saying the truth. I mean, don't go to war for these people. Don't go to Iraq. Don't sign up for the military. They're going to treat you like toilet paper. I mean, come on. Where are the political? I mean, if it's a spiritual issue and these people are into the occult and witchcraft and evil, then why are these pastors and these so-called Christians allowing these young kids who are, I mean, I'm 40, I'm older, but they're allowing these young kids to have their whole lives ruined, literally destroyed in a useless war that's transforming the world to a charnel house. It's disgusting, you know. I mean, the United States are the bad guys right now. We're not the good guys, okay? And that should be made perfectly clear. And I feel sorry for these false teachers and these Pied Pipers and these bad shepherds who are allowing these people to unquestionably throw their lives away for this crap, you know. It's disgusting. I'm sick of it, so it's got to stop.
Honestly, good point, and the story is for ages. And that.
All right. See you. I got to run.
Got to see you. Bye-bye.
All right, take care.